Hello, welcome everybody to my next episode of Operator's Table, hosted by me, Tomasz Syta. Today's guest is quite unusual because he's the first guest that I think I'm interviewing from San Francisco, Jakub. Maybe it would be the best if you would introduce yourself, say a few sentences, maybe where you are working, what you are currently doing, and if you want, you can also throw maybe what do you like to do outside of work or what are your hobbies.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really exciting. So my name is Jakub. I come from the small city in Silesia. Currently, I'm chief of staff at Casca, living here in San Francisco. Casca is a startup that was funded in 2023, went through YC. We currently raising round B very soon. And the problem that we solve is we want to help small businesses in the US get a very fair funding and support them on the growth, as they are the backbone of the almost any economy, small businesses. And that's the mission. We do is by automating the loan origination service. What I do in my free time is I love to play tennis. We have beautiful courts here and the weather is really nice, so you can do it throughout the whole year outside, which is lovely. And during the weekends, we, together with my partner Patty, we go do some hiking, horse riding, run on the beach with our dog. So yeah, it's a hard work here throughout the week, but we also like to take some time off to sort of stay sane in this crazy city.
I think I don't know if you heard about this company. I think it's called Wellphone. It's from Warsaw in Poland, and I remember I was recruiting there to work as founders associate a few years ago. And I think they are pretty similar thing that they are also enabling, faster borrowing the money for small and medium businesses in Poland, and the whole, like infrastructure, credits, etc. Yeah, just a fun fact. Okay, so maybe first of all, you can tell me, I've never been in San Francisco, and I think, this is quite a hot topic for everybody outside San Francisco. For example, people living in Poland. What's the main difference between, living in the current place where I think it's the hottest in terms of all the AI companies and startups compared to, I don't know, Silesia or like Warsaw or like, to other countries you've been or lived?
I mean, it's definitely the hottest. It's definitely the center of the AI revolution. That's how I call it. I think the biggest difference is definitely that the cultural difference, in a way that everything in the city is around work. You go to the park, you talk about work. You go to work, you obviously all the time working like 12, 14 hours. Go for a coffee, you talk about work. So I remember that after the first couple of months here, I was so tired of like only talking about work. But I mean, that's probably why this place is so successful, because everything is very focused on delivering and delivering results and working. At the same time, it's very hard to find a bar that is open after 10 p.m. So it's definitely a great place if you really want to focus your life around work. And also, it is a really nice place to explore nature, definitely. I think it's one of the most beautiful place I've ever been to when it comes to traveling around. You have access to beautiful beaches, you have beautiful hikes, and that's why I think this is where I sort of find my balance. So during the week, it's all about work, and on the weekends, we usually take a car and just drive somewhere for a hike, or just enjoy some beautiful views.
Okay, perfect. And in terms of working culture, values, and how the teams are moving. Because I know that in USA also, I think there is this way that people are moving really, really fast. They ship things fast. And could you compare? Because I think you have experience working now in SF, but also working in Poland. Maybe what is the difference? And from your observations, like what makes basically their startups in San Francisco so successful? Why they are moving so fast? Like if you could split it, into like simple parts and explain to a person that like is not in this ecosystem.
Yeah. So, I mean, to be honest, I don't have the very good comparison because I was lucky enough to start my startup career in Ramp Network, which at the time was the startup that got the largest round A in CEE region. So things were moving really faster, and culturally, it was similar to what I'm seeing here. So I don't have really that comparison, and it's very hard for me to say what would be the difference.
Coming back to your ramp experience in Poland, I think from what I remember, you started there freshly after being a consultant to join the company in around 2022 as founders associate. So maybe you can tell me a little bit, because I talk with a lot of people who would like to, join early stage startup in this generalist role, such as, for example, founders associate. And actually, a lot of people are coming from like, investment banking, private equity, or consulting background. So what made you to switch and actually do this step from consulting to early stage startup?
Yeah, I think the main reason for me to switch is I was observing Patty, how she was working, people she was meeting, how the work looked like. And I saw this pattern. I saw the pattern of people joining startups and how fast they are growing. And I was already like 3-4 years into consulting, and I felt that I was a little bit stuck. And I knew that the next step is going to be manager, the next step is going to be senior manager, and I didn't want to follow this path. I saw that startup can be much more exciting, and there can be way more possibilities. And I remember when I made that move, I remember my friends in consulting, they were a little bit laughing from me, like not understanding how would you exchange this senior consulting job for founders associate. But I saw the patterns, and I sort of seen that I'll be able to grow fast in that environment. And at the end, I believe it was a very, very good decisions. And the trend has switched, as you probably noticed as well. Many, many friends are asking me, how can I get to startups? What can I do? And I always tell them that you just need to get out of the bubble. Go to events. There are currently a lot of events organized in Poland. I think Poland is growing really well in terms of startup, and I think the environment will be pretty great. So I would just advise for people that wanted to switch to startups, just go to events, meet people, write them on LinkedIn even. I think many people are very open to meet, to talk to you from startups, because that's the culture.
Okay, thanks for this quite thoughtful answer. But let's say that, like, I don't know, I'm in a similar situation like you. For example, I worked 2-3 years in consulting already, learned, a lot of these tools, how to make presentations, financial modeling, how to talk with senior and C-levels, all of this like toolkit that the consulting is giving you. And I'm even going to some, networking events, but how should I start talking with people? Like they're outside of my bubble. I don't know how to get there. I don't know how to get, for example, founders' attention since they're super busy, or maybe I'm scared to approach them. And I think second part of this question, which is even more important, is how to choose a startup that you would like to work in. Because let's be honest, 90% or more startups are failing. Mm, of course, a lot of them are becoming unicorns. You can learn a lot. Like, the team is moving fast and it's really like learning on steroids. But actually, a lot of startups are also failing. And like, maybe you are not learning there that much. Maybe, the founder is a psycho, or like the senior members you are working with you, they're actually not like giving you any feedback. So what do you think? How would you approach this, that you need to find a, you know, job in a startup right now, freshly coming from consulting?
Yeah, great question. I mean, coming from consulting is actually give you a lot of advantage because in startups, people like generalists. So you have those skills that um, help startups a lot actually on the operator level actually. So this is the skill that is really needed, and like this is how you also present yourself as a person that is just curious and can solve different problems, and been working in different industries and seen a lot of things, and that's why you'll be able to also support a certain startup in the area. And I think don't be afraid at all to speak with people, like especially startup people. I mean, I've seen, I've experienced people rejecting me in places like big corporations or like some partners in law firms or things like that. But I've never seen person from startup that would be very negative towards me. So they're usually very open and they like to listen and ask them right questions. Ask them for what problems do they have, discuss the solutions, and then they might see the potential and actually hire you on the spot even. So just be pushy because that's what startuppers like. And don't be afraid to talk to them, definitely. When it comes to your other question, how to pick the right startup, I think look at the funder. I believe at the early stages, funder is all that startup has, basically. And if you see that person as your mentor or someone you uh, see successful, or someone that has really good potential, or is very curious, very motivated, I think this person will succeed. And even if not, you learn so much on the way. Um, I've seen many people and many startups failing, and uh, actually, it's really not a bad thing because you joining that startup, you learn so much that any other startup will be happy to have you. And people always saw that as you joined a failing startup or you joined a failed startup. It's your fault. No, it's not. It's the opposite. It's actually you learn so much on the way that even this failure actually made you better than anyone else. So definitely don't be afraid to pick a startup that you think might fail, but focus on the funder and the team. I think that's where I'll put more focus than the startup itself.
Yeah, I think that's valid. Usually, also what I when people are coming to me and thinking about switching, either to founder's associate or chief of staff path, I recommend them also maybe choosing a founder that it's not their first company or not their first startup, because I also talk with many people who are working for, first time founder and who didn't have maybe experience even in their field, or were quite young. So I think then the chances, basically looking from mathematical probability, is lower that this person will have success and scale the company. So I also advise people to work for like second time founders because they already did this, road from 0 to 1. They learned of their mistakes and usually their second company is more successful than the first one.
Absolutely. But
Okay.
even
Yeah.
even if I had a choice, like stay at Deloitte, PwC's, or and move to first time funder, I would still move to first time funder. Definitely, like just the growth path, even just building something together is so immense. that it's definitely worth considering.
Yeah, I think from the other side is much more satisfying because okay, I never worked in like consulting, like like BCG, McKinsey, or whatever, but I just can imagine. Then there you have like these big teams, and you are delivering some presentations, solutions, you do research, you are giving some Excel or like some Sheets model, and like your basically your guidance how you should do the stuff, but then there's up to them to implement it and to do it. So basically you never see maybe the full potential of your labor fruit, but when you are joining a startup, and especially it's a small team, you super quickly can see if the like input that you did for a startup equals like some nice output. And I think at least that was really rewarding for me when I was working as founders associate in early stage startup, because basically I was doing something and then the next day I could already see if it had this small impact, big impact, and even if I did something bad or good, I immediately got this feedback loop. So, the next time I was tackling some similar problem, I already know how to approach it better, for example.
Absolutely.
All right. After you've been founders associate in Ramp, I think you went into the commercial strategy manager role. And I think it's quite interesting because I also see, a lot of founders associates, and like there are usually two main paths, I would say, for them. So first one is that they are usually then getting some own ownership as kind of like a function owner, some area in business that, for example, they touched a few times and they were really good at it. The founders saw it and he or she gave him or her more ownership in that specific area. Or second path, option B, is to be just upgraded to chief of staff. So basically more senior founders associate with more responsibility also and more ownership and more power to take decisions beside founder. But you went this first path, so I'm also interested, how this evolved. Like you were getting, for example, projects or tasks from this, commercial strategy path that you were really good, or like you've seen that, for example, this is what really sparks your interest and you asked the founder to go into it more. Like how did it happen?
I think it was very natural. So as a founders associate, I was just doing plenty of different projects in various areas of the company, and we just had a gap in commercial team, and we saw the need for someone to sort of step in and support the whole team to improve the growth. And it happened very naturally. I just was starting doing more projects, and then when the new chief commercial officer came in, he saw sort of my potential a little bit in that area, and he asked me to stay and just grow the team and the function together. So we built together like a strategy doc for the next couple of months, and he asked me to help him lead the team and support the initiatives. So it was very, very natural.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I think that's the best, that like the path happened naturally, and that the guy also spot, a potential. I think it's important to know that like when you are working in startups with senior members or maybe managers, they are really seeing your good or bad side, and they know, for example, on which areas to assign you, so you can even grow more your skills or like the parts that you are the best at. And after Ramp, I think you around 2 years after working Ramp, you joined another company called Tools for Humanity, which I think it's a part of Word, right?
Yeah. So World is the foundation that Tools for Humanity is building for.
Okay, because I was in some summer conference or like startup tech festival 3 years ago in Berlin. And then I saw their stand, the Word, I think, with this device that you can scan your pupils. It's pupils that you are scanning, and then basically you have kind of your like digital infrastructure that can, from what I understanding, it's like a secure pass that like nobody can copy it. So thanks to it, you can create your online profile and log into various systems and applications, and I don't know, maybe some banks or whatever. Could you
Exactly.
elaborate a little bit more on that? What is it exactly?
Yeah, sure. So the story of it is that it's actually a startup, Sam Altman startup. So before ChatGPT, he sort of saw that in the age of AI, where we have more bots coming in, and the internet, will be flown with agents. There will be um, it will be very hard to distinguish who's human, who's not on the internet. And there's even this theory, that internet theory, that says that at some point there will be so many machines, thinking machines on the internet that we all won't be able to distinguish what was written by human, what was not, and basically the internet will become useless. Um, so Sam sort of saw that, and together with Alex, who's the CEO, who was studying physics at the time, decided to build startup that will help to identify and distinguish humans. And they were trying many methods on identification, but realized that the only method that is sort of unbreakable, or almost unbreakable, is a scan of the iris, because the iris is the only thing that is so diverse that you can scale it to billions. So they decided to build very advanced camera in Germany that take the picture of the iris, creates a code. This code is dispersed into different areas, different places, and it is used as your unique code to identify yourself in the internet. So when you log into Reddit, you'll be able to prove you're a human, and everything that you produce will be marked as this was produced by a human. So that's the main mission. Um, I mean, there was also like a bigger vision of distributing income. So some was thinking that we'll come to an era where AI will be producing so much wealth that we need to have a mechanism that is outside government to distribute this wealth and equally. So that was one of the that could be one of the solutions. But let's see how it goes. It's still, I would say, I thought it's late, but it's still very early actually. So I'm very curious where the company will go.
Yeah. And regarding this idea for universal income in a few years or 10 years or 15 years when the models will be even more advanced, what's your opinion on it? Do you believe it? Like, do you think everybody should get, some like basic salary? Because like there will be, I think also Elon Musk said, I remember watching it or hearing that like he has this vision of the world that one day we will have everything what we want, that every like resource or thing will be just like available for us. So basically people will need to find, I don't know, meaning the other way. So I'm interested, what's your take on it, since you also work in this company which was really close to this idea.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Elon recently said that money will be useless in
Oh, exactly.
2039, I think, something like that. I think it's a bit too early. Will it be true? I think at some point it will. I look at this from this perspective that we will have unlimited energy from the sun that will be so cheap. Unlimited. So if you have unlimited power, and we'll also have AI and robots will be powered by this unlimited power, which will be so cheap, we'll be able to make everything. So the cost of goods will come to almost zero. So we'll be able to have anything we want. The question is who will own the assets, right? And how we will distribute those assets. And this is where I am not capable to answer that question. But I know that the trend is obvious, right? So we'll for sure have, um, AGI. We'll for sure have cheap energy, and I know where this is coming, but don't know how this will look like. So this is what I start to think more and more around that, especially here where everything is like so advanced. Just to give you an example, like to get to work, it takes me around 20 minutes and it takes me only one click. So I get into my Tesla, I just click one button, and it drives me without touching the wheel. And like for me, this is like unreal, and it's sort of, this place also helps you to see insights, what will happen. And you're a little bit like a couple of steps ahead, seeing what's going on here on, what's coming to the rest of the world. And I think that's also the beauty of this place.
Okay. Is there anything else you love about San Francisco besides the one-click Tesla coming to you and dropping you off your work?
I think I'm really grateful to the city for the chance, that you can grow and be in such a lucrative field, surrounded by really talented people, because the talent density in the city is just crazy. And just being around those people just helps you grow so much. And you take out so much from every conversation. And there's no other place like that.
Okay. Coming back a little bit to your role as Chief of Staff and Tools for Humanity, because there is a lot of conversations online, and also when I talk with candidates, that basically like Founders Associate and Chief of Staff, these are positions that kind of are working closely with the founders. Sometimes it's the right hand. Usually, Founders Associate, maybe it's like more junior, and like Chief of Staff is more senior. But like from your own experience, do you see a big difference of being Founders Associate in Ramp to being a Chief of Staff at Tools for Humanity?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a big difference. So Founders Associate, as you mentioned, it's junior. Even in the US, there's no such thing as Founders Associate. They just call Deputy Chief of Staff or Junior Chief of Staff. That's how they call it. Founders Associate is a role of more like a hands-on person that just supports on different projects and is more like a founder enablement. But sort of individual contributor on different projects. But Chief of Staff role is more of an executive role. And this gives you much more view over the company, and you have way more impact on the strategy, on the decisions, and you're much more of an advisor than the support. So I see definitely a difference. And I really like my path, because I believe that you have to start, just learning the basics and understand what the funder needs and be very observant. And by being very observant, you're able to then step into the role of a chief of staff that has a lot of impact. And I think it's a very, very important role in the organization, because this person has a visibility into the whole company, and cares about the success of the company, at the same time being very unbiased. Because if you're a chief commercial officer, your only goal is just grow, right? If you're chief operation officer, you only care about safety of operations and effectiveness. So, and as a chief of staff, you see a little bit wider view over the whole organization. You can definitely steer things in the right direction.
Okay, perfect. I think that's a clear explanation. And staying in terms of this comparison area still. So you've been a Chief of Staff and Tools for Humanity. Now you are, since a few months, Chief of Staff at Casca. So maybe you can tell me a little bit, like, that is it the same? Like, I don't know, also, what company stage was like Tools for Humanity and Casca right now? Was it like the same stage of company? I don't know, they got the same amount of people in the team. Because also I know that sometimes you can be a chief of staff, for example, to one specific senior member, if they're like CEO, CTO, or like another C-level person, or you can be to whole founder. So maybe if you are and you were in both these cases like chief of staff to the CEO or like whole senior suite, as I would say.
Yeah, so those roles were definitely different. So at Tools for Humanity, I was a chief of staff to chief business officer, who was overseeing the business development side of Tools for Humanity and policy. So my role there was to support him in leading the teams and in communication and management with the C-level suit, and just being his right hand, supporting him on different initiatives that he was having. So it was a bit less broad than what I have currently. Also, the company was way bigger. Tools for Humanity at the time when I was there was over 200 people. So it was just huge, and the teams that I helped him lead were the size basically of what Casca is right now. So yeah, the role was definitely different. Also, the Trevor, the chief business officer at Tools for Humanity, was previously a US ambassador to Austria. So it was also a really interesting experience to work for the former ambassador. A lot of our work was about going around the world and talking with different policymakers and policy advisors on how we can, go to market with the solution, which is very hard to explain very often and can seem very dangerous or abusive even. So our role was to explain how the technology works and to convince different people. So it was very similar to ambassador work. So I learned a ton from that experience, and it was a very fun time. At Casca, it's way different. So at Casca is right now around 40 people, and I'm the chief of staff to the CEO. So and I would say this is for me, this is a very typical role of a chief of staff. And for me, chief of staff role is twofold. It's around 40 to 50% of founder and team enablement, and 50 to 60% of IC, which is individual contributor. This 40 to 50% of founder enablement and team enablement is all about being an advisor to the founder, supporting him on all the initiatives that he has, running OKRs, which is a system on how we prioritize and focus in the company, and supporting the team on the initiatives that are the most impactful, running management meetings, and also serving as a little bit of like a people function, meaning listening to what people need, listening to the concerns, to have this understanding of what's going on in the company and what's most important to fix. And this other 50, 60%, as I mentioned, the individual contributor, is about running projects on your own that are the most crucial, the most important for the company. For example, right now it's the go-to-market strategy. So right now I'm very much focused on how we go to market faster with our new product. And just right now there's no one that can take that. So I'm the one who's focusing on that and using 50, 60% of my time on working on that. So that's the role at Casca, and I think it's more broad, and I would say this is the true chief of staff work.
What's the most rewarding thing about working as a chief of staff for you?
So I really enjoy that I have the full visibility over the company. And I think the most rewarding for me is impact. You really can change a lot and what you do can turn a lot of working lives into into better lives, into more efficiency, and more happy team. And that's what gives me a lot of joy.
Okay, so maybe from the other side, the question right now, what's the hardest thing about working as a chief of staff in early stage startup, in your opinion?
I think the hardest is definitely the people function part. So you need to deal with a lot of different characters, a lot of different people that are focused on different things and care about different things. And you have to get them all together and focus on the same goal. And I think this is the most difficult part. And at the same time, one of the most important things of chief of staff. So recently there was an interview with the CEO of Anthropic, and when he was asked, what is your main focus? What are you spending your time on? And he said that like 70-80% of his time was on culture. And I believe that people very often think that, it's not important, but in a room of so much talent and so many like individuals who care about different things, focusing on the people function and focusing on getting those people together and getting this alignment is one of the most important things and one of the hardest ones, definitely. And I'm still learning how to do this. But it's also really rewarding when you start to, talk with multiple people and see the patterns and see the solutions. This is very, very rewarding.
Okay, but because I know that in a lot of startups now there are also like people, talent, HR employees. So it's actually, in your opinion, a task or job of chief of staff to actually go to a lot of meetings, see how people work, and kind of manage their, I don't know, egos or whatever, their constraints, are not like strictly like, I don't know, people or talent person in the company. I also know that sometimes, chief of staff could be like a kind of fractional replacement, that a lot of time the founders hire chief of staff to also manage kind of this like whole people thing, culture, as you are saying, and also maybe help with, hiring. But maybe there's, like in my mind, the first question comes, why like chief of staff should do it and not some, dedicated talent or HR person.
I mean, in larger companies, that's definitely the case. You just hire a very senior chief people officer that's been doing this his or her whole life, right? But in smaller companies, like, you can afford that, and there's no need actually. And it's not about like operational stuff of people function, right? I don't do reviews of people or don't have those talks with them. It's more of like how do you shape the spirit of the company, and how do you see good or bad patterns and try to fix them, and and you, as a chief of staff, you are uniquely positioned to do that because it is very important, and it also takes a lot of time. So CEO at the small startup cannot afford to do that. That's why the chief of staff sort of taking that little part over, and it's advising CEO on how to tackle this.
Do you think that this kind of sense for people, knowing how to talk with them, how to connect them, how to kind of be a mediator as a chief of staff, is a trait that like you are born with? As some people are more, I don't know, extrovert, they are better at the soft skills, or maybe this is a thing that like you can learn while working as a chief of staff, or like other function that touches this topic that's really like a people person. Because, I think there are some traits that people are naturally born in, and that's how just they are. So that's why some people, I don't know, are really good, for example, painters, because they are better at like this art stuff, or some people are better at sellers, and they are better closers naturally, and it's really hard to, for example, teach a person, to close deals and how to be a good sales leader. But question is to you, what do you think about this part, as you just said? Is it something that you can like be born with, or you can also learn it with no problem?
I think you can definitely learn this. I was terrible at this. I mean, I was completely unaware. I couldn't read people and I couldn't understand patterns. I had very mathematical brain. I was thinking very logically. And sort of, I didn't have even a sight into this this part of life. So I think I learned this mainly thanks to like going to psychotherapy. I think this is when you start with yourself, you trying to understand yourself, why you react to certain things, why you have a certain emotions, and while doing that, also the mathematical brain helps with that a little bit, like logically understand what's happening. When you learn it on yourself, you're able to see this in other people. And when you see these patterns in other people, it becomes your superpower because you are able to foresee what's happening with certain people, how they are driven, what motivates them, and this helps you in the chief of staff role. So definitely start with yourself, do the work on yourself, and I think this can come naturally to many people.
Okay. So summing up this little chapter right now, if you would give me like 3 main points, which in your opinion make a person a really good potential for like the best chief of staff, which traits would it be?
I think kindness, curiosity, low ego. Those three.
Okay.
I would say
And can you
those. Yeah.
can you now explain them a little bit? Why you said them? What's behind these choices?
Yeah.
You can
Sure.
start with kind.
Yeah.
You mentioned it
So
first.
kindness help you to get close with people and build the relationships, which is big part of chief of staff because you have to talk and on the daily basis spend a lot of time with all the C-levels, which are very different, employees. So this helps you to gain their trust and also to be more understanding and listen to them and understand the problem faster. So that's one. The low ego stuff is also really important because in chief of staff you sort of work in the background and you're not really in front of everything. So you cannot expect to people to applaud you. It's a job from the back seat, and you have to realize that. And that's why it requires this. And also, when you're low ego, it's also easier to talk with people and to understand them and not to get your own sort of not to put your own thoughts in front of what you're hearing. And the last thing I said was curiosity. Without curiosity, you're unable to see the problems, the patterns in the company, because you just stay on the very top level and you won't be able to see inside the company. So that's the three things.
Okay. Interesting. I think I talked already with some person before, and they also said that usually when you are chief of staff, you are, usually you don't have like a team, you don't manage a team, so you are individual contributor. And usually, since you work, as you mentioned, in the backseat, you are not getting applause, like the things are happening. you maybe see output of your work, but it's not clear as like, for example, amount of leads that you brought to the company, or like how many views your newest reel on Instagram made as some content creator, right? So
Exactly.
that work is not that visible, but of course it's still important, and that's why a lot of early stage founders have at the end chief of staff. Okay, maybe you can give me a little bit your vision and your honest opinion. Where do you think this path of chief of staff will lead you? Because a lot of chief of staff or like operators I talk to, either they want to be scale like in this kind of maybe traditional path or in like operations, so maybe head of ops, VP of ops, COO. Some people want to again move to some specific area in the business, like you did, a switch from founders associate to commercial strategy manager. Or the third path is that, for example, they are just quitting their current startup or company and they are start to build something on your own. So like, what's your end goal? Is it like, do you want to have this vision that you for now want to build still your skill set and advance more in some senior operator role? Maybe there is some area of business that it's really interesting for you, or the third path that you thinking of maybe working few more years as a chief of staff and one day start your own startup in San Francisco?
Yeah, great question. So I don't have a plan, sort of where I want to be. I've always just followed the patterns and sort of try to enjoy the path and be very present in what I do. And the current role gives me a lot of fulfillment and a lot of growth, which I care the most about. And I see two potential paths for me. It will either be a funder, but there's still a lot of work I see I gotta do, and a lot has to change for me to be able to survive that, because it's
Okay, interesting. Let's stop there. What do you think you are missing to be a full-time founder as a B2B SaaS agentic vibe person?
I think strong gut. When I see what different funders are going through, what situation they're dealing with, and how they're getting out of situations, I'm so impressed. And I see that I would not be able to do that. I think I will at some day. I think I'm getting this more and more confidence, more and more of this like stability, but this is something that I'm still missing. This just a very, very strong gut, and it's a big sacrifice that I think I'll be able to make, just not yet. The other part, which is a bit safer part, and it's very also natural, is definitely like a functional like VP of Ops. You just take over, a certain part of the company operations. You just lead them, and it's actually doing basically almost the same job, just with more like
Salary.
or ownership.
Yeah, I'm joking.
People staff salary is not bad, to be frank with you, but yeah, if VP of Ops in like larger company, this is something like where you have like big responsibility, big ownership, and it's definitely sort of the next steps for chief staff.
Okay, and do you see, you switched from consulting now to startups and you are a long time in this ecosystem. So when you think about yourself, you think that this is the world for you and, your whole life will be connected to startups, but you are seeing the possibility that one day maybe you'll get bored or like, you will want to take a little bit of break from this intensity and this, grinding in San Francisco, and maybe you will, even open a business, but like completely something else, not strictly correlated with technology, AI, and startups.
Yeah, I definitely consider different paths. As I said, I don't have like a certain plan. This is where I want to be.
Yeah.
So I definitely consider different paths. I think one path that, if things go well, I could definitely move to more of like a VC path. You see a lot of patterns. You're very connected with the startup world, so it's also a very natural step to join a VC and either advise or invest. Or if everything goes really, really well, um, you know, we have this plan with Patty to if her startups go really well, if my chief of staffing goes really well, we could just move to Italy and open up a small restaurant and just also enjoy that part of life and do like a very much of a switch. And I'm starting to see that we might not be able to do that because this is the startup world, and being in San Francisco is so exciting that maybe the switch would be actually hurtful. It would hurt a lot in terms of the adrenaline you get, and I think you can get easily addicted. But you have to remember to keep the balance, and that's what I always come back to. That you need to remember what's important in your life, and you first got to figure it out what's important for you, and then try to keep these important things on the first place, not to lose yourself in the startup world.
Okay, so what's important to you then? What did you figure out?
I mean, I think it's so I was raised in a way, and I'm still keeping that family is the most important, and it will always be. And whatever I do, it's just a mean to have a fulfilled life with people that you care about around yourself, and at the end, people around you and your family and your friends are the most important thing. And it'll always be. I always prioritize this over any job or passion, because this keeps me in the right place.
Okay, maybe now quite personal question, but since I know that Pat, your partner, is also creating her own startup, you also work as a chief of staff in, I assume, heavy scaling startup right now, which can be quite intensive sometimes. So, because usually I think the normal path is that if we have a couple, one person maybe goes more into this like entrepreneur, risky life, trying to start doing something on their own, and second person maybe is having more stable jobs. So now it's kind of from one side you are risking and you are aiming high, but from the second side you are still secured, and also like when you are coming to home, you like not only talking about jobs and everything, but also have other topics. So how do you deal with this, in your relationship that I assume you are working a lot, Patty is also working a lot. So how you find in San Francisco, especially time, to still cultivate your relationship and like not happen anything to it, from the personal standpoint?
Yeah, I mean that was a big decision that we were considering. Should I join, some large corporation here in San Francisco, do 8 hours, and then support her because she's not gonna stop working. She'll still be working those hours that she does. But then we realized that it is a unique time in history, and we are in the most exciting place. And why should I work some managerial job at Adobe, which probably is nice, but I can do more exciting things and grow more and take more risks. And so that's the decision we sort of made together. That and also stability. What's stability? Because like I could join Adobe, but at the same time, Adobe can cut jobs by 50%, and I could be not on the street obviously, but like just fired, right? So it wasn't about stability anymore, because like any place can be unstable, right? There's no guarantee. It's more all in your hands, and I think startup can be a safer place because it's you have more impact and you have more visibility to shape things. Other part of your question, how do we sort of maintain and work on our relationship. I think so during the week it's very hectic. I just come back home, 8 p.m., 9 p.m. We meet, we have a dinner together, and probably maybe watch some Friends if you want to relax, because we are also like mentally tired. But then on the weekends, we really preserve that time for us. We make a trip outside the city, walk the dog, meet with friends. Like really, this cutoff from work is really important, and that's what's keeping us sane.
Okay, okay. Perfect. Okay, so I think we'll be wrapping up. Maybe one last thing and question I have for you is, if some person is thinking of doing the transition, for example, from Poland, Warsaw to San Francisco, and they not only want to get a job, as a chief of staff or founders associate, which we already talked about, but they want to get this position in San Francisco. So, there is one level higher of also going to the United States. How would you approach this? So basically, what would you advise the person that also, like you, want to make this kind of big life decision and move themselves to San Francisco permanently?
Yeah. I'm going to be brutally honest. This is extremely hard, just because of the visa, which is very hard to get. So that there are different paths that you can do that can help you, and like if anyone would be interested, and it's very one-to-one. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I think I can do some advice on that front. I'm helping a couple of friends that are considering this path. But you can either join a large company that is located in the US, and has also an office in Poland or in the UK, and then get transferred. So that's I think the I would not say the easiest, because none of those paths is easiest, but one of the easiest. And other one is to start your own startup, and raise funds, and then get a certain visa, because it's easier when you're a founder, definitely. And the other one is you need to build a certain CV and have certain achievements to get the O1 visa, which is hard visa, but it's doable. And then you can be hired by a company that can potentially sponsor the O1 visa, which is Extraordinary Abilities Visa. And you can read more about it. There are 8 things that you can do to get that visa, but it's still very hard, and you need to find a company that will sponsor it. So, and current market is extremely competitive. But if you're like the right talent, the right engineering talent, usually there are companies that look for these talents outside the US, and this is when you can get it. So my journey in that was a bit simpler, because I was already working for Tools for Humanity from Europe, but I was traveling to the US, so I already was able to figure that out on the way. But I'm not gonna say it's easy, because it's not.
Of course. Okay, thank you. So maybe now give the floor to you if you have, any inspiration words, or you want to say anything to my audience. So basically, people who are aspiring chief of staff, founders associates, and maybe they have a job, or they would like to have a job at early stage startup, the same as you. What would you say to them?
I would say be curious, go outside of your comfort zone, take risks. I think there's not if you take a bet outside your comfort zone, you always win, or you almost always win. Because what you're about to learn from that new experience is gonna give you so much that it's gonna be worth it for sure. staying in the same place, doing the same thing is nice and safe. And I recommend that to many people because if this is something that they care about the most, and it's something that they want to have in their life, that's great. But if you want to be a successful chief of staff and you want to grow in startups, you got to take risks and take more bets, because that's the ultimately the only way to grow.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Jakub, and
Thanks.
see you in the next episode. Bye bye.